AMD is on the first tick, it looks like slightly lower. It's moving around quite dramatically, though. Fourth quarter adjusted EPS, $1.53. That is way better than the $1.32 that was expected. Looking at revenue, $10.27 billion. That is also better than expected by a pretty wide margin. Looking for $9.67 billion for an estimate. They provide CapEx numbers of $222 million, which is actually lower than the estimate. All things considered, it seems relatively contained compared to some of the other numbers we've seen from some of these bigger companies. R&D expenses for the fourth quarter, $2.33 billion. So it continues to be a pretty sizable chunk of their revenue, but not necessarily any bigger than it has been. They do provide guidance, though, for the first quarter, and this is maybe the point where there's a little bit of a question mark from the street and why you're not seeing an excited reaction. They provide first quarter or current quarter revenue guidance, $9.5 billion to $10.1 billion. Now, that is better than the $9.4 that was expected. So, KG, tough crowd, I guess, when it comes to some of these semiconductor names, especially going after, I know, different company, but the SanDisks of the world and these companies that are like doubling earnings quarter over quarter.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it came in line with expectations here. Also, the stock has been trying to curl up and trade at near these highs. So we might be seeing a little bit of a sell the news event. Conference call is going to be a major mover for this one. Look, everybody wants to focus on the GPU business. AMD is the CPU king in this market, and they can continue to talk about how they're taking market share from a company like Intel and actually seeing the implementation of a lot of these CPUs in these laptops and things of that nature. I think that's going to be a tailwind for them over the long term. Everybody likes GPUs because it's a big ticket item and a lot of hyperscalers are buying them. But at the end of the day, the CPU market from tangible addressable market standpoint actually is a lot bigger. And so I think that's the longer term strategy for them. And you'd like to see them kind of pivot towards that narrative. I think that would actually be a benefit for the stock.
Sam, any thoughts initially on this? It is getting a little worse in its reactions, down about $10 now, so let's call that 4%. Still well inside the one standard deviation range that was expected, but down on better than expected results.
Yeah, I mean, confusing, but I mean, we've seen this story before, right? So, I mean, there must be something going on here. I guess we'll get a lot more clarity on the call. I think there's going to be a lot of questions, obviously, around the adoption rates. I mean, we want to know about the MI350. We want to know about updates on the MI450 as well. But there was a high bar going into these earnings that certainly was the thinking here. I mean, it had rallied pretty hard into the print here. I mean, many were expecting another good quarter. There was a lot of focus on the data center revenue as well, which came in higher. So I suppose that cleared the bar there. Whether it's enough is the question. I was speaking to Joe Mazzola about this earlier today, and obviously investors are going to be looking out for signs that AMD is challenging NVIDIA's dominance in this market, especially for the accelerators. And winning over more customers as well, basically. But I think broadening it out, I was having a conversation with Bob Lagan as well earlier today, and it's also shifted from a CPU story to everything else is going on in the market with the TPU story and that shift in leadership. And Kevin mentioned the drama that we've been seeing unfolding with the back and forth with NVIDIA and OpenAI. I think there's just so many other things going on in this market. It just seems like there's a big enough pie to go around, perhaps, and it seems like the TPUs might be giving them a bit of a run for their money as well. I mean, broadly sector speaking.
Kevin, seeing weakness in names like NVIDIA in the post-market, names like Broadcom in the post-market, AMD sub 230 now is indicated by those quotes. Fair to see a sector-wide sell-off on these numbers? I mean, Sam's point, still 39% year-over-year growth in data center revenue.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I think the conference call is going to have to clear this up. So I think the market is also maybe a little bit concerned regarding the inventory build as well as the sale of the MI308 data center GPU products. So it looks like their inventory actually had a buildup or net buildup of $440 million on that 2025 results. But they also did see $360 million released because of those same chips. So there's a little bit of an accounting adjustment that's taking place. Maybe AMD was a little bit bit late to the party when it came to trying to sell a lot of their products to China. Everybody's been focusing on the H200s. We know that, but AMD may have had a little bit more of a delay, and I think that's probably another reason why you're seeing a little bit of a little bit of a reaction. But if Lisa Su can kind of talk through that process, especially about sales going over to China, it might actually calm the fears for this market, especially if they talk about a significant buildup in orders, similar to what we saw for NVIDIA about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that announcement around the H200s. I think that would be a benefit for them. So right now, reaction, I think, is a little bit more aggressive than what the numbers are kind of telling us.
All right, well, we'll see how it shapes up tomorrow. KG, always appreciate it. Mr. Kevin Green, Senior Markets Correspondent for the Schwab Network.